Hello again, welcome everybody, greetings and salutations. Haven't been on for a while, mainly because it's kind of been a bit warm outside. Temperature's gone up to like the mid 30s. Now, for a lot of people, there's been a lot of sass about how all 30 degrees, 32 degrees here, that's nothing. Back home it's XXX and we get by every day. But I'm glad to see that a lot of people from other climes have ventured to these shores and have said with some authority that temperature in England hits different. And I can certainly attest to that. I am genetically ginger, as my good friend Alistair Beckett King, actually formerly Ginger, I think he called me, bless him. Yeah, the weather gets very warm in the UK, and I don't know if it's because of our architecture, our geographical location, but it does get warm. And unfortunately, by the same token, when it gets warm, more people come outside. And there are certain people you kind of wished had stayed indoors.
If you don't like freedom, go and live in North Korea. They don't have freedom there. If you don't like freedom of speech, go and live in Iran. They don't have it there. If you don't like freedom of speech, go back to the 1980s and live in Russia. They didn't have it then. This is Great Britain. We have freedom of speech in Great Britain. We have the right to preach the gospel. And if you don't like it, go and live in a country where it's banned. This is Great Britain. We have freedom of speech to preach the gospel.
Now, this gentleman's name is Stephen Claydon. Now, he's a member of the Bread of Life Community Church. I think it's based in Clacton. Might be Croydon. Can't remember. He's out there proselytizing, shouting into a megaphone, uninvited, unwanted, annoying, obnoxious, rude, selfish. It's not the kind of thing, if you're having a nice peaceful day out, it's akin to the people who take their Bluetooth speakers with them everywhere and play their crappy music out for everybody to hear. Especially like nice sunbathing at the beach, sunbathing in a park, and somebody that's got, I don't know, Chuck Demons and Pliers. Remember them? Whatever, some god awful drum and bass. Not all drum and bass is awful, but what they're playing generally is. It's obnoxious, it's rude, and it's exactly the same thing as what happens with these preachers. Now, it's evangelical. I'll go into them a little bit further, but this church is pretty new. And when a church is pretty new, and I'm talking mid 2024 new, you have to wonder about what their motives are. And I also say there's anything nefarious, but if your first port of call is to get onto a speech uninvited with a megaphone and pee off everybody that you come across, it's not looking good for you, basically. For your moralistic values, put it that way. Now, get into him a little bit more, but what I will say is, on my travels, I often bleat about how much I like going up to London. I'm hoping to go up again soon in the next couple of weeks. Jolly around, I don't care, I don't really know. All I know is I'm going to go up there and I'll probably walk for 5-6 miles, as I usually do. Might pop into the British Museum. I took Max and Luke there last time. Apart from being very amused with all the boobies and the willies, they didn't find it very interesting. Not fun taking a couple of autistic kids who forgot to take their medication that morning. But hey ho, a good time was had by all, up to a certain point. But on my travels around London, I do come across the odd, I'm not going to say preacher for these guys, for a very good reason. Now, there's two groups of people I'll talk about originally. Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, possible Jehovah's Witnesses as well. If you come out of I come out of Charing Cross Station because I live in the southeast of England. I'll get on the train. They generally turn into Charing Cross unless I diverted to Canning Town or Victoria. If you come out of Charing Cross and go round the corner, down the slope to Embankment, past the arches, on the left-hand side, by the original Thames Gate, there's usually a couple of the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe Mormons, same ilk. I've made my feelings clear on the Mormons before. I'm not going to go into that now. That's not what this video is about. But what I will say is they are just standing there. They've got their little tripod thing. You'll see them. They've got the little tripod thing, and they've got the little watchtower, the magazines and things like that. And they're just standing there. And they're being peaceful and serene. And they are waiting for people to approach them who may be curious. Fine. Lovely. You do you. Leicester Square, most of the day, in between Burger King and the M&M factory, there's some guys on the north side by the Cineworld, because the Odeon's over there, Cineworld's here, I think there's a casino as well, handing out Quran, hanging out free copies of the Quran. They've got the little standy there, little pop-up, actually, so they had a little pop-up stand. I think they're not doing that anymore because I believe they got, I won't say attacked, I believe something happened in London, I can't remember what, don't know if it was Tommy Robinson related, wouldn't be surprised. But they will stand there and they will wait to be approached. What they don't do, and I've seen this in several locations all around London, not only on Speaker's Corner, is these Aegis, irritating hockwombles with a megaphone, just standing there, and nobody is paying them the slightest amount of attention. And you think, why are they doing it? How, I'm not going to say brave, how deluded must you be to think that anybody's listening to you? I'll tell you, it was Westminster, opposite the Houses of Parliament, on the north side of Westminster Bridge, on the western side. There's a kiosk there. There's some steps to go down by the side of the river. There's a kiosk there selling all the usual I Love London t-shirts, the fridge magnets, which I have an extensive collection of now. I've got 5 of the bloody things. I'd always buy a fridge magnet. But there was this woman, and she had the megaphone, Jesus is the light, Jesus is the Lord, come to me. And there was a guy sat down with his plinth, with his sunbeater hat on, looking miserable with sin, with this sign that just said, come to the Lord, whichever religious verse it is. And I'm thinking, this is your life? I know some people they believe it's their calling. I know some other people who believe they had a different calling. That's a different conversation. But is this it? Is this what you get on with? So I've seen the guys it was a woman and a gentleman. That was Westminster Bridge. I've also seen them, they're usually knocking around, again, Leicester Square, where the guys who hand out the Qurans are. Now, the first time I went to see the Book of Mormon, I was sat on that bit. There's like a nice solid marble bench or granite bench all the way round Leicester Square. Just sat there literally waiting for 6:30 for the doors to open. I grabbed myself a Greggs, that's what I was at. And I was just waiting. And there was this woman. She was an Oriental woman. Means nothing. Oriental woman. And she had this notepad. A tiny little lined notepad. And she was scribbling things in it. And I caught a glance. I wasn't staring, but she came over to me and she was quite close. And this was the scribblings of a lunatic. I'm sorry. If you've seen, is it Zodiac? Is it Seven? The kind of, when you see, when you have the archetypal or the, what's the bloody word? Stereotypical deranged psychopath with too much going on in their mind, and they've just got all these tiny scribblings. That's exactly, and I swear, exactly what her book looked like. Thought it's a little bit strange because that was all she was doing. Anyway, got a bit bored, got up, walked down to Piccadilly Circus, hung around there. The buskers doing the dancing thing on the right hand side of the fountain. They were still there. Bang the bloody microphone again. Doing the dancing. They're really good. They're nearly every day. And so I walked back, just waiting, and she had the megaphone out. And she had it in her hand, a little notebook in her hand. Christ is the way, Christ is the Lord, come to the light, this and that. And that 2 and 2 together for me, I'm afraid. Now, I'm not saying she had any kind of mental deficiency. However, the tiny spider-like scrawlings in this book and the dedication and the obsession she had with writing the scriptures that had popped into her, not right. However, and it has to be said that this gentleman, this Stephen Claydon I've just mentioned, I showed a video of, he was slightly different in his patter. That little clip, which is on his Instagram page, which I'm not going to link because frankly he doesn't deserve the attention, was just saying, if you don't like it here, go somewhere else. If you don't like the freedom of speech, go and live in X, go and live in North Korea, go and live in Iran. They don't have freedom of speech. So, you are a Christian evangelical, okay? You evangelize, you proselytize, you go out and you speak the word of the Lord and use freedom of speech and freedom of expression as your crux, as your justification for doing the things you do. Okay, that's fine. Freedom of speech, knock yourself out. Don't annoy people. But I'm going to point out another evangelical Christian. And as someone else pointed out in the threads, you didn't even have to get that far down to find out what kind of person was doing this. A Camden resident is threatening to sue the borough over 4 zebra crossings painted in the colours of the transgender flag nearly 4 years ago. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Not if you're an evangelical Christian. Blessing, I'm sorry, for whatever reason, I apologise if I get this wrong. Blessing Olubanjo, 57, an evangelical Christian, is now threatening legal action over the crossings at Tavistock Place and Marchmont Street, the Telegraph reports. This is on the Telegraph, the Standard. I've just found this website. I brought this case because I believe in fairness, freedom of belief, and the proper role of public institutions. As a Christian and a taxpayer, I should not be made to feel excluded or marginalised by political symbols in public places. This crossing sends a message that only one viewpoint is welcome, and that's not right in a truly democratic society. I'm standing up not just for myself, but for anyone who feels silenced or sidelined by discredited, harmful activism forced on the public by ideologically captured local authorities. I beg your pardon. Let's knock that one down. Let's cut this down to the sentences. As a Christian and taxpayer, I should not be made to feel excluded or marginalised by political symbols in public places. How is it political? It's a flag on the road that makes an amazingly large percentage of the population feel welcome and accepted. But you don't want that. This crossing sends a message that only one viewpoint is welcome, and that's not right in a truly democratic society. How, in any way whatsoever, can that say only one viewpoint is welcome? I may be ironic, it may just be a little bit, a coincidence, but I'd like you to read the words right in front of that zebra crossing. Look both ways. Take every side of the argument. Accept everyone as equal. It's not that bloody hard to do. I'm standing up just not for myself, but for everyone who feels silenced or sidelined by discredited, harmful Activision. Activision? That's a video game company. I'm standing up not just for myself, but for everyone who feels silenced or sidelined by discredited, harmful activism. What is discredited about the trans rights movement? You maybe want it to be discredited in your deranged mind, and I'm going to call it deranged because clearly you're not all there. Miss Olibanjo, I'm reading off the screen here. Miss Olibanjo argues that the crossings breach political neutrality rules under the Local Government Act 1986, claiming they amount to unlawful political messaging. She also says they infringe on freedom of belief and expression under the Human Rights Act 1998. How? Please explain. I'd like to, other than this ramblings of some deluded... I'm trying to find the words because this has made me kind of cross. Now, I don't have any kind of vested interest in trans rights. However, I know trans people. I have trans friends. One of Luke's school chums now goes by the name of Harvey, and they play bass in a band, and they're fucking awesome. Used to be a young lady, now a strapping lad. Plays amazing bass, no problem whatsoever. So this is basically the ideological version of pulling things out of your arse to try and justify your own bigoted, hateful mentalities. They breach political neutrality rules. I hate to tell you this, but the trans rights movement is nothing to do with politics at all. Unlawful political messaging. It also infringe on freedom of belief and expression. How? How can a trans rights flag painted on the road infringe on freedom of belief and expression when they are 100% that? I'm going to go slightly back to this chap I told you about earlier. Now, as I said, it's a relatively new church. The guy looks like he could be a reform counsellor, just in this picture. And there's an image on his, like I said, I'm gonna, if I find anything on here, I'm going to blank it all out because he deserves no publicity whatsoever. He's got a leaflet here. He had an upcoming sermon that was the 29th of June, so a couple of weeks ago, a week ago now. But the hashtags on this post: give an offering, PayPal. I'm going to blank that bloody thing out. Jesus, Isaiah, hashtag Pride, hashtag Pride 2025. Why would he possibly tag? Because he wants people to see it. What a scumbag. LGBT, hashtag abomination, hashtag Leviticus, hashtag Romans Church, collecting whatever, LGBTQ. So he's heading all this LGBTQ Pride 2025. He's had, and in the middle, abomination, Leviticus. Q, you twat. Honestly, Leviticus, don't get me started. I'm pretty sure you're wearing a shirt in that picture that's cut from 2 different cloths and you've trimmed your sideburns. So you are a fucking hypocrite and don't deserve any audience whatsoever. And the fact that you have to go out, you feel you have to go outside with a bloody megaphone and peeing everybody off. I had a conversation online with him. Let me dig it up. The post is Pastor Stephen Claydon referring to himself in the third person. Delusions of grandeur. Berates those who complain about freedom of speech, who say we shouldn't be allowed to preach the gospel publicly. You're not preaching the gospel publicly, you're shouting into an amplifier system and annoying everybody. My response to him is, you can have freedom of speech, but what you're doing is annoying everyone in the area and damaging the message you're trying to put across. His response to me: many are not annoyed. Many have told us how thankful they are for what we are doing. Sure, I'm pretty sure your congregation can be counted in the hands, less than the fingers of one hand. If you are one of the ones who are annoyed, that's fine, that's your right, but don't presume to speak for everyone. Speak for yourself. My response: no, you're annoying everyone at a rate of 99%. Once again, speaking for everyone just because you're offended, I'm not, and the preaching of the word of God. And once again I say, speak for yourself or go live in a country where freedom of speech doesn't exist. You can get on much better in Iran or North Korea. My response: I believe there are several companies that could fix your broken record player at very reasonable prices. For the very dint of the first image on his Instagram page, he's a hate preacher, he's a homophobe, he's a bigot, he doesn't deserve any platform whatsoever, which is why all I'm going to do is mention him by name. I'm going to blank out every possible link I can to anything that he may be promoting, because he really doesn't deserve it. So, evangelical preachers bleating about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and they want to curtail the rights and freedoms of everybody that doesn't agree with them. Isn't that fascism? Okay, so that was a very quick one. Quicker than normal, actually. So screw these people. They're hateful pieces of crap. They don't deserve any platform, and they certainly don't deserve to be standing in the middle of public streets pissing everybody off with crap that nobody wants to hear. I will finish with my mantra. Religion is like your penis. Keep it to yourself, enjoy it in your own time, and don't wave it around in front of your kids. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.